This is Dr. John Murray. He's a lecturer in paleontology from NUI, aka Ross from Friends.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, this is Darwin's revelation. So I'm just going to let him loose to do his thing.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the reference to Ross. I've been trying to shake that one off all my life, all my friends. I'm from Dublin originally, and that was the only way to explain what I did was through the medium of friends and the concept of Ross. So thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I want to talk to you today about Darwin, about evolution, very much from the perspective of a paleontologist, a geologist, so somebody who looks at rocks for a living. My plan is to just provide a little bit of background. We'll think about what the time was like before publication of Darwin's masterpiece, and then we'll talk about Darwin's masterpiece itself, Origin of Species, published in 1859. I have a copy here of Origin of Species. It's a facsimile of the first edition. I'll pass it around, you can have a little look at it. Can't afford a real first edition myself. I don't know if you've ever tried to look this up on ABE Books. That's a really good website. But you're talking maybe sort of 10,000 quid for a real first edition. So this is a facsimile, so you can have a little look at this in your own time. Please feel free to stop me, full stop, but please feel free to just ask questions or interact. I like to have I continuously ask my own students questions when I'm lecturing, so don't really want to have this as a monologue for the whole hour. Let me just get this to, there we go. Yeah, with the publication of Origin of Species, it's fair enough to say it was a very, very revolutionary book. And it challenged our perception of where we are, where we sit in the world. And as this little cartoon suggests, we sort of put Darwin and people connected with the idea of evolution, people who worked with the idea of extinction and fossils, on a sort of line of conflict with the church. If we take ourselves, Homo sapiens, and I'll put a little example of one up there, so it's Darwin there, living today, what's the closest living relative to Homo sapiens living today? Chimpanzees, yeah. So you have chimpanzees, and you'd imagine this line here, okay, this is like a tree type concept. So chimpanzees, and then who's next closest to us?
Grapes.
Gorillas, yes, very good. So the gorillas go in there. And then next again? The orangutan, yeah. Now, if you ask a biologist, a zoologist, about sort of evolution of apes and humans, that's the sort of picture that they will come up with. How do we know that? How do we know that that's the order that they come in?
Genetics?
It is. It's to do with genetics. People have taken a look at the DNA profile of all these animals and worked out the distance, so how far apart they are. And using that, they work back to reconstruct a family tree. So in today's, even in the universities, I know in Galway, the zoology departments and the botany department are very, very focused on what's called molecular biology, where they're very focused on DNA. Now, if you take that as a picture of the evolution of humans and apes, what is missing from that picture?
Humans?
Well, if you take that as just that's the family tree, the thing which is missing is the fossil record. This, hopefully the sun will disappear behind clouds, but this is a skull of the Manisi man. This is a sort of Homo erectus, Homo habilis, somewhere between the two, from Georgia. And the Manisi man is very important because when it was found, it totally changed their opinion of the timing of the spread of humans out of Africa. This being Africa here, Cyprus here. The Manisi is from Georgia, which is the former Soviet Union Republic. And it dates from between 1.7 and 1.8 million years. And it was really radical when it came out, because the idea was that humans had to evolve to a certain level of sophistication, and then they would have pushed out of Africa. Homo erectus is always, in all the general textbooks, Homo erectus is put out as the grade of human that had sufficient tool capability and sufficient intelligence to make that journey. But the Georgian specimens, Homo georgicanus is what it's called now, those humans were a good deal more primitive than that. So, if I put up the next sentence here, we're not descended from chimpanzees. And no, you haven't got the wrong person in for your humanist talk today. Okay? What is the truth of the statement? This is and again, in the general wider public, you hear this all the time. Descended from monkeys, descended from chimpanzees. What is the truth?
Ancestor.
Exactly, yeah. We share a common ancestor with them. So, the idea being that when you go back in time, chimps, humans, and you go back in time to when they last shared a common ancestor, that common ancestor should theoretically look no more like a human than it does look like a chimp. It should be somewhere between the two. Now, molecular clock work, it's a bit difficult to read there, but molecular clock work suggests that we last shared an ancestor with chimps between 4.5 and 6.5 million years ago. That's when you just look at the DNA and you calculate from the rates of mutation, you figure out when they were last the same. And at the moment, this specimen here is called Sahelanthropus chadensis. This is about 6 million years old, 6 to 7 million years old, and it was dug up in Africa just recently, described by a French team. And Sahelanthropus was put out there by the people who described it as potentially that you're looking there at the last common ancestor, the last between ourselves and chimpanzees. So we take Sahelanthropus and we go back to our family tree. Sahelanthropus would actually plot down there, potentially, on that last node between chimpanzees and ourselves. And I'll put a little time scale on here. So this is 0 today, 1 million years, 2 million years, 3, 4, 5. And then I run out of space, so it just jumps to 10 down the bottom. But when you then begin to fill on all of the fossil evidence, and I'll put some of the skulls of various things. When you begin to look at this, there's Sahelanthropus here, and then we work up into Australopithecines, Paranthropus, which is an extinct vegetarian group of humans, and then push our way through Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Neanderthals, and then finally up here, Homo sapiens. You can see that if you're really truly interested in the history of life, truly interested in the history of life on Earth, you need to have the fossils as well as what's living today. I would like to use this opportunity just to highlight one important contribution from an Irish perspective here. And I'm highlighting here, so we've come up, this is Homo habilis, Homo erectus, and then there's a branching here. This is Homo sapiens and then Homo neanderthalensis. And Neanderthals were described in the last century. This is a replica of the skull that you see here. This skull is internationally known as Neander 1. And this is a plaster cast replica which was made back in the middle of the 19th century and sent to this individual here, William King. And William King was a professor in, as it was then known, Queen's College, Galway. And you can see here, this is the official way. When you name something, that's the genus, Homo, same as ourselves. Neanderthalensis is a species. And when you give the full name, you always put in brackets after it the name of the person who first described it and the year of that description. And you see it, Neanderthals bear that name, King. And I think it's a stunning achievement, really, and one that is really not recognised, not even within the Irish geoscience community. The fact that William King was the first person in 1864, that's 5 years after publication of Origin of Species, the first person to successfully name a new species of human, which is a scientific first. And if you set that back in the context of the time that it happened, I mean, today, people, humanists, people who believe in evolution, have to fight a sort of battle with creationists and whatnot. Well, you can imagine back then, that would have been an amazing achievement to put that sort of idea forward, because Homo sapiens was considered to be, you know, it was standalone from the rest of the natural world. And it's not recognised in Ireland. It is elsewhere, though. This is, you can't really see this, but this was sort of taken on a camera phone when I visited, it was Milan. It was Milan. They have a little natural history museum. And a little bit on human evolution, they had all sorts of bones and replicas of things. And they had a picture of William King in the cabin, which is amazing. But in Ireland, it's not recognised at all. So, some ideas on before Darwin, pre-Darwinian ideas on evolution. If we were to teleport ourselves back to the sort of the late 18th century, evolution. Well, the idea of evolution didn't exist. There was this idea of divine creatures, and everything had been created. I can't remember what day, I don't really bother to remember what day, if it was the fourth day or the third day or whatever, by a single act of God, whatever that happens to be. And that was an idea that was prevalent, absolutely. That was taught in universities, and that was absolutely just taken for granted at that point in time. It still is taken for granted today. There are people who still buy into this stuff. So, creation science there, ignoring reality for more than 200 years. When I began, I threw that one in for the kids. Just a bit of Lego there. In fact, we'll keep going on the